I'll show you how to set up SyncThing on FreeNAS. SyncThing is an open source synchronization software which you can synchronize your Windows computer, your Mac, and your Linux computers. First, I'll log into my FreeNAS. Username root. Password is 1234. It's super secure. In FreeNAS is set up our volume, so we click on Storage, Volume Manager. You can name your volume anything you want. You can name it Backup. You can name it Files. You can name it Volume 1. Since I only have one drive available on this FreeNAS virtual machine, I can't set up any RAID, so I'll just select the one drive and click Add Volume. Now your volume shows up as Volume 1. Second thing we want to do is set up a user. So we click on Accounts, Users, Add User. I'll name my user Test. Make sure the Create Primary Group for User is checked. Full name is Test. Don't care about the email. Password is 1234. 1234. And click OK. You have a username Test, and a group called Test was also created. Next thing we do is set up a file share via a Windows CIFS share. So click on Sharing, Windows CIFS, Add Windows CIFS Share. Check the path, click Browse. Volume 1 is the data set that you created. You can name this anything like Backup or Files or Volume 1. Next thing we do is set the permissions on the data set that you created. So you click on Storage, Volumes, the volume that you created earlier, change permissions. So you change this from root to the user and the group that was created earlier. You select all these. Owner is read, write, execute, group is read, write, execute, other is read and execute. Ensure the permission type is Unix, and check set permission recursively. So now that you have the permissions on your file share set up, you can go to your Windows box or your Linux box, connect up to this server, type in smb:// the IP of your FreeNAS, then you'll see your volume the volume 1 that you shared earlier. You'll log in with your test account, 1234. Now you can create a new folder, test. You can create files, test, copy and paste. So you know that your CIFS share is working and you have the correct permissions to read, write, and execute, save files to it. So you know your CIFS share is working. Next thing we will do is install the SyncThing plugin. So we click on Plugins, click the SyncThing plugin, click Install, and then it'll prompt you whether you want to install it or not. Click OK, and this process takes quite a while. Click on Plugins and Installed tab. Here you'll see which plugins are installed. Click on the status service and change it to on to enable the SyncThing plugin. Next we will enable SSH. We'll click Services, Control Services, and click the SSH on tab. Click the little wrench near SSH and check Login as root with password. Click OK. Open up a terminal. We type SSH root at the IP of your FreeNAS box, 3.2. 1234 is the root password. And now we're SSH'd into our FreeNAS box. So we type JLS, and this tells us we're looking for this number right here. That's the number, the JID of our SyncThing. So we type JExec1 TCSH, and this is basically SSHing into our SyncThing virtual machine. So we type grep quote SyncThing unquote /etc and password. And we're looking for these numbers right here, 983. That is the group ID for our SyncThing account that was made when we installed the SyncThing plugin. So we type exit, exit, exit. So now we need to make a group with the 983 group ID called SyncThing. And now we need to make a new user for SyncThing. 983 is the user ID. Username is SyncThing. Uncheck the create a primary group for the user because the group is already created. The primary group is SyncThing. Full name is SyncThing. Password is 1234 or whatever you want it to be. Now we need to modify your existing user. Any users that you have, add it to the SyncThing group at the bottom in the auxiliary groups. Press OK. Now we need to change the permissions on your volume that you created. Right now it's set to test. You set this to SyncThing. Now we need to go to the CIF share that you created. And you can create new folders. You want to create them. Say you want to back up your desktop, your documents, your downloads, your pictures, and your videos. So you'd make a folder for each of these. If you wanted to back up your entire profile, you could just put home and test or whatever your profile name. So we'll SSH into our FreeNAS. Type JLS. You see the jail ID is 1, so JExec1 TCSH. So now that we are logged into our SyncThing jail, we need to make a directory, usually under the media folder. So CD media, and the media folder is empty, so we can go make directory -p volume 1. You can name this whatever you want. We need to make the directories for our desktop. Downloads, documents, and pictures. Can't type today. And any other directories that we created on our FreeNAS share. So now we have to make a .st folder. Each one of these folders that we want to sync. So we type touch.st folder. And we change directories to the other directories that we made. And again, touch ST folder. If you don't have this ST folder file in your jail, then you will receive an error whenever you try to back up. Now that we have our folders backed up in our .st folder file created in each one of these, we need to change mod, change the permissions on the directories to make them read, write, and execute. So we just changed all the permissions under volume 1 recursively to 777, which is read, write, and execute. Now we need to go back into FreeNAS and set up our hard links to our SyncThing jail. So we click Jails, View Jails, Storage, Add Storage. On the jail we select SyncThing. On the source, this is where we will select the folder that we want to back up. So we want to back up our desktop. Then our destination will be the media, volume 1, and desktop. So this creates a hard link between your virtual file system here to your dataset file system up here on your FreeNAS. Uncheck Create Directory and click OK. And we'll do this for each folder that you want to back up. So I learned something, that I cannot set up a virtual bridged network card in VirtualBox, which is already virtually bridged. So I had to switch over to my physical FreeNAS box, which is already set up on my network. After you add your folders in, it's always a good idea to restart your jail just to ensure that the changes have taken place. So you go to Jail, View Jail, click on your SyncThing, and click Restart. Click Yes. Then click on the Plugins drop down on the left side, click on the SyncThing, and a little pop-up will appear saying SyncThing can be found here. So click here, then go to syncthing.net and download whatever version of operating system you are using. I'm using 64-bit Linux. Extract this gzip. And I usually rename this something like SyncThing. Then copy it, paste it somewhere in your profile, open up a terminal, cd SyncThing, and then /SyncThing. That'll start the SyncThing on your computer, and it'll create a folder called Sync, and it'll also open up a browser. First thing I do is disable UPnP and Global Discovery, and I also uncheck automatic updates. And once you've changed your settings, you need to restart by clicking the restart button. To add this workstation to my virtual SyncThing on my FreeNAS, go to Actions, Show ID, copy this, close it, go to your FreeNAS SyncThing, add device, copy the code in there, and you can name this VirtualBox or whatever you want to name it, and you can select what folders you want to share, and then you'll see a prompt saying the ID code at this IP wants to share or add a device. You click Add, and you can edit this to say FreeNAS SyncThing. So to add a folder that from your workstation to your FreeNAS SyncThing, you click Add Folder and name this Sync, and you type in the path to the folder. And if you don't want changes from your FreeNAS getting copied over to your workstation, you can have this, your workstation, as a folder master. You can also have your pull order. I usually go alphabetic. You can also have file versioning, so it keeps a certain number of versions of your files. But then you can click Share Device with your FreeNAS Sync right here and save. You see that it is empty right now. And once you shared this folder on your workstation, it will pop up saying, do you want to add a new folder called Sync? So you click Add, or you can do it later. And the folder IDs on this and this have to match exactly, or it will not synchronize. So on your FreeNAS SyncThing, it will be, the folder path will be media, and then whatever the subdirectory is, and ignore permissions. If you do not ignore permissions, it will never back up. I'll show you. It'll sit here and get a permissions error. But right now there's nothing in the sync folder. So I'll copy and paste a few things in there. You can click rescan, and now you have 32 items at 17 meg, and it'll say it's syncing with your FreeNAS. And then over here it'll say 32 items are syncing up. Okay, see this? Since I did not put ignore permissions on my FreeNAS and only on my FreeNAS SyncThing, I got a permission operation not permitted because the permissions were not ignored. So it's trying to copy the files as your test user over here on this workstation, which doesn't have permissions to it. So you click ignore permissions and save, restart. And if this does not sync immediately, you can click restart on both of these from the action menu, and these are both restart. And then once both of them come back online, it will eventually find each other. see this getting copied over. And it's done. 32 items at 17 meg copied over. Something I found out about SyncThing is it uses a deduplication type of copying. So I have this Windows 10 Pro ISO, which is 3.3 gig, and this has already been copied from my main workstation over to my FreeNAS using SyncThing. So what I'm going to do is cut and paste this into the SyncThing folder, and this is scanning, so it takes a while to scan. Something this size at 3.3 gig will take a couple minutes to scan. So if you have a lot of movies or a lot of MP3s, the larger the file, the longer it's going to take to scan. And it's very hard drive intensive. Okay, so it's done scanning, and you'll see the Windows 10 Pro is being copied from somewhere else. Since this Windows 10 Pro ISO already exists in the SyncThing share in one of the folders, in like my downloads folder, instead of recopying it over from another workstation, it checks to see if this file already exists and just says copying from somewhere else or copying from original or reusing. So SyncThing will detect if, say, you have more than one computer copying over to your SyncThing folders, it will detect whether a file already exists. Once everything is set up to your liking, you can go into Services and disable SSH. You can also open a terminal by going to Jails, View Jail, clicking on your SyncThing jail, and then clicking Shell. And this will actually bring you inside the SyncThing jail. And because your SyncThing website, which runs on port 8384, the IP of your SyncThing in 8384, and then it also runs a local website on your local host at 8384, I would put a username and password, test1234, use something more complex than that. The next time you open your website up, you'll be prompted for a username and password. If your firewall on your Linux machine or even your Windows machine is turned on and blocking port 22,000, your FreeNAS, SyncThing, and your workstation will never talk to each other because the firewall blocks it. So you see, this can sit here all day and these things will never sync up with each other. They will keep pinging and pinging and pinging, and the firewall will just keep dropping the packets. So to allow your SyncThing FreeNAS box to communicate back and forth with your workstation, you have to poke a hole in your firewall at port 22,000. So here is sudo ufw allow the IP of your SyncThing FreeNAS box. Now these two will start talking. Okay, see, these two now are talking and synced up. And then you can verify that by ensuring your folders sync up. So it's that fast. And then to shut down, you just go to shut down, and that will stop the SyncThing service.